everybody, and welcome back to another educational bird video to teach you how to care better for your bird. I got a comment suggestion asking me, how are birds as emotional support animals? This question is very dependent, and we're gonna dive into kind of what goes into caring for a bird and what kind of mental disabilities or mental illnesses you might have that might maybe fit a profile for a bird, and which ones are probably going to make it worse. Now, please understand that these are all very subjective, while in general, I might believe that they won't really benefit for you. You might have benefited having this certain mental illness and having a bird as well. Please take this with a grain of salt. It's just kind of like a basis to understand if maybe it's a good fit for you. Obviously, always do your research, always look into it, and you are, at the end of the day, the one who decides what is best for you and what your needs are specifically. Birds are literally like toddlers, and I don't mean it in the way of, oh yeah, my bird is my child. Well, yes, they are. They have the same intellect level, the same emotional level, the same behavior as a 2-year-old to 4-year-old child. And before all the angry mothers come at me being like, oh, no, they're not, children are so much harder or children are so much easier, whichever perspective you have, at the current moment, my brother and his wife have a 2-year-old son, and they even agree that their son is at the same level as my bird, speaking wise, throwing tantrums, behavior, the words that they can say. Before getting a bird as an emotional support animal, think about that and the amount of responsibility that you need to care for a bird, which is basically like having a child, and it is to that level of responsibility. So there are some mental illnesses that I do believe a bird does really well with, beginning with depression. If you have chronic depression, seasonal depression, whatever type of depression you have, I do think a bird would be very beneficial, because a bird is very routine. You have to be following a very strict routine with them, and you have to be getting up every single morning to feed them, otherwise they're going to scream you awake. And they keep you at home, and they keep you good company. They make you laugh. They really do bring a lot of joy. And I think if you're someone who's depressed and struggling to be motivated to, get things done, they really help to just bring that kind of like little motivation, especially because when you love them so much, like, you kind of care more about them than for yourself. So you will get out of bed, you will be doing those things for them just to see them happy, and in turn that does help you a lot, because you are getting up and doing something, even if it's for them. In turn, like, it keeps your mind off of things, and it helps you keep a routine instead of sticking to bed and being alone with your thoughts. And with this as well, I think birds are also a great emotional support animal when it comes to anybody with post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD, because as well, they really do help to keep out of dissociation, really help to keep your mind off of things. Again, with the routine, they help you be motivated and be doing things, and you're never going to be really bored with them because they're always doing something. So they're constantly just helping you just change stuff during your day, and you're not really going to be alone ever, which is very nice and comforting, because you're always going to have kind of like a friend to be with and something to do with them. You can watch movies with them, you can do your routine with them, you can talk with them, and whichever parent you do decide to get, they do very well with just helping in that aspect. Now, the ones that I don't think you would benefit from is if you have a generalized anxiety disorder, bipolar disorder, if you have autism. As well, they probably won't help if you have obsessive compulsive disorder, ADHD or ADD. They are very loud, they scream a lot, they make a lot of messes, they're constantly destroying things, and it's mostly with the screaming that can become very obnoxious and become short-tempered for people, because it can become repetitive and frustrating. For people who can't handle loud noises or repetitive noises and need a lot of quietness, or they are easily over-sensory loaded with a lot of things, because birds are going to be constantly kind of like talking and screaming and making noise. And even if you do get a quieter bird in comparison to other birds. Like cockatiels, I do find are much more calmer and quieter in compared to other parrots, but this doesn't mean that they in general are quiet birds. So any parrot in general is going to be messy, it's going to be loud. The loudness level and the mess level is just something that is very, triggering to a lot of people, especially if you're somebody who needs, perfection, their routine not to be ruined that's already in place. You're very worried all the time because as well, birds are very fragile. The smallest thing can get them sick, can get them injured, and that is such an added stress on top of everything else that you're already dealing with. It's another thing to understand that a lot of birds don't do well with a lot of people or big families, so they are very solitary animals, and if you are somebody who really needs that company, then that's great because it's not very easy to bond them to a big family unless you are very experienced, or it's just their personality. Some are more social than others, some do better with bigger families than others, but in general they do bond to just one other person. The other thing too to understand is that they are lifelong companions. Birds can live anywhere from, depending what species you get, from like 30 to even 100 years. So they are a lifelong commitment. So if you are getting them as an emotional short-term support animal, then it's not going to work out. This is an animal that you are going to have to change your whole lifestyle to, and everything you do is going to be surrounding them. So this is not a temporary solution. This is going to be a lifelong support animal and companion for you. As well, birds are not really known to be able to accompany you everywhere unless you do harness train them. It's not like a dog that, forces you to go out and take a walk and explore the neighborhood like easily. Some birds are just not, you're not able to harness train them, and there's different situations. In general, I do think that dogs do make better emotional support animals. Birds at the same time are just as sensible to your emotions as dogs. It's just that dogs allow you to be able to go out more and socialize more. Birds are more solitary, but they both have very good emotional senses, and they always know when you are upset, when you're sad, when you're hurt. You can even train them to respond to if you're fainting, if you are, having a panic attack, and they will come to comfort you. And I know my birds, a lot of times if I'm ever crying, they come and they lick my tears and they'll snuggle with me, and they're very emotionally intellectual. They really are. They always sense when something's off. But the other thing too is that at the same time, birds are also emotionally complex, and they too deal with their own emotions. So some days they'll be super cranky, some days they'll be super happy, some days they're manageable, and other days they're screaming all day long. So you kind of have to deal with their emotions and their tantrums as well, and their emotional changes. So they're not really as emotionally steady as a dog would be. So that is something to keep in mind if you're thinking of having them as an emotional support animal, because they are not going to be providing that constant kind of I'm always there to help you. Sometimes you're gonna have to help them. Have the intellect level, the emotional level of a toddler, which means that they'll probably be throwing tantrums, and they'll be happy one day, mad one day, bite you another moment. So like I said, this does not mean that you cannot have them as emotional support animals. It's just things to keep in mind. And if you feel that this fits what you're going through, and you are this this works, I want this, then that's great. I know people who have them as emotional support animals. I had my cockatiels an emotional support animal, and all of mine are also emotional support animals. Even though we have our difficult days, I have learned to work through them, and they have helped me a lot to deal with a lot of things. It's just very dependent on what extremes you're willing to go through, what you're willing to put up with, and any animal in general is going to require a lot of work. But I do feel, I've had dogs in the past before, I do feel that birds are way more work than your average dog. So please keep that in mind and make a decision entirely based on you. Take this with a grain of salt, like I said, because I'm not the one who decides for you. You, at the end of the day, will decide what's best for yourself. So I hope this video helped to kind of give you an idea and clarify if birds do make good emotional support animals. And if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Hit subscribe if you want to see more of us. Make sure to check out all our other videos if you do decide to get a bird and you need help caring for them, or you want to just get to know more of what it's like to have a bird and what is that you need to put into it. And make sure to check out our social media links down below, as well as our Etsy shop, as we sell a lot of bird themed things. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.